in the forgotten valley of Duskmore, where the fog lingered like a living shroud, and even the birds avoided the air above the ruined chapel, there was a tale that villagers whispered but never dared to complete, a story that carried the weight of centuries, of curses that bled through generations, and of shadows that refused to rest. And it began with the arrival of a solitary wanderer, Adrian, who had been drawn to the valley not by maps or purpose, but by a dream he had seen repeatedly for weeks. A dream of a pale woman standing under a broken bell tower, her mouth moving in frantic whispers though no sound escaped. And behind her, countless figures with hollow eyes staring into him as if they knew him long before he had ever come. And though Adrian told himself it was nothing but his mind, his steps carried him to the very edge of Duskmore, where an old innkeeper warned him with trembling hands never to stay after nightfall, because night was when the ghosts walked freely, when the valley remembered all those who had been claimed. But Adrian, stubborn and skeptical, pressed on, the road curling down into a landscape that felt deliberately abandoned, with rotting wooden fences, doors left ajar as though their owners had fled mid-step, and a silence so consuming it was louder than any storm, until he came upon the chapel, its walls cracked, its spire bent, its bell rusted in place, yet it looked exactly like the one from his dreams, and he felt a strange pull urging him inside, where the air was thick with the scent of decay and old wax, and in the center stood a circle of broken pews, around which dozens of portraits had been nailed to the walls, each depicting people of different centuries, different fashions, yet all bearing the same vacant expression, their eyes painted with an emptiness that seemed more alive than real faces. And as Adrian studied them, the hairs on his neck prickled when he noticed that one of the portraits was of himself, same face, same scar across his cheek from a childhood accident, only painted in the style of a century ago, and beneath it the name, Adrian Holloway, lost to the chapel, 1821, which made no sense for he was born in 1997. Yet the oil paint was cracked, ancient, impossible to fake, and he stepped back but the ground groaned as if alive, dust falling from the rafters, and in the far corner he saw movement, not the shifting of rats but the slow, deliberate sway of a figure cloaked in black, face hidden behind a veil, hands pale and skeletal gripping a rosary of teeth. And though Adrian froze, the figure did not advance but instead raised a hand and pointed toward the altar, where an ancient book lay, its leather stretched taut as though it had been bound not with thread but veins. And against every instinct Adrian walked closer, the air growing colder, the portraits watching him. And when he touched the book, the chapel shuddered and the voices began, whispering from every direction, whispering his name, whispering in languages he did not know yet understood, telling him that he had walked this path before, that he had entered this chapel countless times in countless lives, and always he had failed, always he had tried to leave but could not, for the valley was a cycle, a prison for souls marked by the curse. And as he turned the first page, ink bled into words before his eyes, describing everything he had done since stepping into Duskmore, every breath, every thought, written down before he could act it. And then the page turned itself, revealing what he had not yet done, describing how he would hear the bell toll at midnight though it had long rusted silent. And when it tolled, the pale woman from his dream would appear, her whispers no longer silent but sharp and desperate, begging him not to follow. And if he did, he would join the portraits, another face lost to the chapel. But if he resisted, something worse would come, something chained beneath the valley itself, waiting for one soul who could break the cycle. And Adrian, half in terror and half in fascination, closed the book. But the whispers did not stop. They grew louder, overlapping until they became screams, and then silence, just as the bell above rang, deep and resonant, impossible yet undeniable. And Adrian's heart thundered as the woman appeared by the altar, her skin translucent, her hair floating as though underwater, eyes wide with agony, lips moving fast. But this time he heard her, the words fractured yet clear. Do not follow the path. Do not open the ground. Do not listen to the chains. Yet as he watched her, the floorboards cracked, and beneath them he saw movement, not human, not animal, but something vast pressing upward, as if the valley itself had a heartbeat, and the portraits shook, their painted mouths opening in silent screams, and Adrian staggered back, wanting to flee, but the chapel doors slammed shut, sealing him in, and the woman's voice grew frantic, louder, until she was shrieking, pointing toward the book again, which now bled ink onto the floor, spelling out, "You will open IT. You always open IT. You never learn." And suddenly memories not his own flooded him, flashes of lives lived before, different eras, different versions of himself, always finding this chapel, always hearing the bell, always facing the choice, and always failing, each time losing more of himself, until the faces in the portraits stared back with his own eyes, dozens of Adrians trapped forever. And in that moment he realized the horror was not in death but in eternity, a loop without escape, a curse bound to his soul. And as the ground split open and a chained, writhing figure began to rise, its body made of ash and bone, its eyes hollow abysses, Adrian screamed not in fear but in recognition. For it was him, another version, the one who had given in centuries ago, now bound to the valley's hunger, pulling him closer, whispering that all was futile, that no matter how many times he resisted, the end was the same. And as the bell tolled once more, the chapel dissolved into blackness, leaving only the sound of endless footsteps behind him, his own echoing, as though the valley itself was walking him into another lifetime where the story would begin again, and again, and again, with no ending, no salvation, just an infinite haunting.